Auburn starts spring football today. Alabama fights back, gets a big win over Arkansas at home. Kentucky destroys Auburn. We're about to talk everything basketball with our longtime friend Rece Davis.
Yeah, we've always loved having Rece on the show. We're excited that through the rest of this year in the NCAA Tournament, the rest of this regular season NCAA Tournament, Rece is going to join us every Monday, courtesy of mybookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up there to get that sign-on bonus, mybookie.ag. Welcome in, Rece Davis. Hope you're doing well today.
I'm doing great. Recovering from the red-eye return from Spokane, but doing well. How are you guys?
Doing awesome. Thanks a lot. I do want to ask you because I remember, this is a long time ago, but I remember when Tennessee went to Autzen Stadium, and we had Tennessee fans calling our show because they wanted to compare it to SEC venues. I don't know how many times you've been to a big game in that venue. It felt pretty electric during the game. What was that venue like Saturday night?
It's great. I mean, you made the comparison to Autzen Stadium at Oregon, which probably is a pretty good comparison because Oregon football, I think Autzen seats maybe 54,000, something like that. But man, it is loud. I've been there for a lot of big games, and I've been to the Kennel at Gonzaga several times over the years, and I can't imagine that there's a student section in the country that's more into the game and louder. I mean, they camped out to come to the show, and I hope they got some rest because the show was at 7 Pacific time, and then the game was at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I mean, they were crushing it, man. It was a great atmosphere. I don't think Mark Few's team is quite what it's been, but they're still really good. And I think it's kind of a remarkable thing that we would even say that, because 25 years ago, when, right before they made the first Elite Eight run, they were in danger of shutting the doors to the university. And they sort of not only have built a major college basketball program, a major program in a mid-major conference, but, the expectations are really high. And, hey, look, as good as Alabama is, and I know Alabama was young, it was early, but, they put it on Alabama pretty good. So they're still certainly very capable.
Dunaway was just telling us on the other side, or before you came on teams that had consecutive streaks in the NCAA tournament. And I don't know how many teams had more than 7 straight trips to the NCAA tournament.
More than 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe.
Okay, only 6 in college basketball, Rece. Gonzaga has 7 straight Sweet 16s or better. I mean, that's the kind of job.
Right.
People can talk about their conference all they want. It does feel different this year. I mean, Drew Timme is obviously an elite player, but outside of that, it doesn't seem like he's got the cast that can take them deep in this tournament.
And the thing about Drew is he's a really, really good college player, but he's a below the rim player. So he's not a rim protector defensively, and he's not going to go over you if you put length against him. Now, he's got exceptional footwork and great touch, and he finds a way to score. But there are games, there have been times in which he hasn't been able to, over the course of his career, not take over a game. Their guard play is good, but not necessarily elite, like Jalen Suggs, when they went to the national championship game a couple of years ago against Baylor. So they're probably missing an elite player on the perimeter. They've got good players, but they're kind of missing elite guys out there. Had a couple guys that were hoping to really get a lot of things from this year that are injured and really haven't been able to contribute at all. But I mean, look, with this year where I don't know that there's a team that I look at and feel as if it's invincible. I mean, I don't think I would pick it, but it wouldn't stun me if Gonzaga went back to the Final Four.
7 teams, 6 years consecutive or longer streaks, just to get that corrected there. Rece Davis is with us on the next round. I'm at the Alabama game.
I'm just glad you guys didn't quiz me on that. Now, maybe I'll know if I selection Sunday, but I'm not sure. That'd be a tough one right there. Have you got the list in front of you, Jim?
Yeah, it's and I appreciate Josh who sent this to us. 32 years for Kansas, 24 straight years for Michigan State, 23 for Gonzaga, 11 for North Carolina, 9 for Villanova, 7 for Purdue, and then you're to Michigan with 6, and then to some shorter runs after that. So impressive streaks there, and Kansas continues to churn them out, man.
It's sort of like you go Kansas, Michigan State, and then the other one in Gonzaga, and then the other ones are kind of like Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So I'm in Tuscaloosa on Saturday, and there was a lot more of the national media that were there too for the Brandon Miller situation. But being the old guy now, a couple of them asked, "Is this the best Alabama team you've ever seen?" And, I said it's one of them. And I go back to, when I was a little bitty boy, Leon Douglas, that 76 team. I don't remember a lot of it, but that team always pops up. And there are a couple of others. You've seen a lot of Alabama basketball and a lot of college basketball. Where does this Alabama team on the court rank for you? Is it one of the best, maybe the best of all time?
I think so. But here's the thing, and you guys know this. Ultimately, it's one of the things about sports. They're going to be judged and remembered by how well they perform in the tournament. If they fall victim to an upset in the round of 32 or even the Sweet 16, then you're not going to be able to definitively say now, they're going to get a 1 seed barring a collapse here late. So you could put that in their corner. But a lot of it will be determined by how well they do in the tournament. Did they get to a second Elite Eight? If they do so, that wouldn't be an upset run like the one they made. I think it was 04, if memory serves you. Yeah, because UConn won the championship that year. So, if they get there, then I think you can pretty definitively say that they are. If they go beyond that, then I don't think there'll be any question about it. The one thing I do believe, and I remember that, I was a little kid too, and the 76 team came and in school at Alabama when the 87 team was there. And then Gottfried had a couple of really good teams for sure. 2002, it was really good. And then the team that Nate had a couple of years ago was really good. But this team has more answers than any Alabama team I remember. And I think they have more answers than anybody in the country. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, Saturday, they're not shooting the ball well. Javon Quinterly hasn't played great. He comes in and he saves the day, along with Dom Welch, who in the first half gave them a huge lift off the bench, and Nick Pringle, who every time he comes in, he does something productive. They bring in Dom Welch and Nick Pringle, and they make some type of very important positive contribution. You don't have scoring one night from certain guards. Then the Burnett kid comes in, he knocks down shots. Rylan Griffin's going to be an NBA player. That dude's a pro, man, and he's going to have nights where he's going to look the part. And sooner or later, and I think sooner rather than later, he's going to start looking like that every time. And, so they've got more answers if somebody's having a difficult night, somebody gets in foul trouble, somebody, twists an ankle or whatever. They've got different places to go. And in the past, it was always, if Leon Douglas gets a bad foul called against him, can't get Derek McKee in foul trouble. Mo Williams, if Mo Williams, turns an ankle, they've got no shot. It's not like that. Now, Brandon Miller, on the floor is probably the best player they've ever had. And I know that's saying a lot with Hollywood Robinson, Reggie King, you go back and name it. He's the most talented player they've ever had. So, that's different. They always need him to produce, but if there are nights when he's not, they at least have some alternatives.
For the record, as you well know, because you used it at the start of the show, Dunaway, we actually baited Charles Barkley into saying it's the best Alabama team, and they're the best team in the nation. So we got Charles to say it.
I think baited is a strong word.
Okay, no, yes. We literally just asked the question, and Charles said it to his.
I was going to say, Charles is not easily led. He pretty much just says what he wants to say. So you're not going to trick him very often.
Rece Davis is with us at Rece Davis on Twitter. ESPN College Game Day, which will be at Duke, North Carolina this coming weekend. Rece is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, joining us each week courtesy of MyBookie.ag, code next round. When you go to MyBookie.ag, MyBookie.ag, code next round. Though you are at the great rivalry there's another big game this coming weekend I very much look forward to, Texas and Kansas. And what Texas has done in the wake of this Chris Beard situation, I find pretty remarkable, Rece. You had every opportunity to pack it in and be distracted. They have not been that. They have been a really good basketball team.
Rodney Terry has done a good job keeping it together, but they also have a lot of veterans on that team who've done an exceptional job wanting to, do the proverbial play for each other. I mean, Marcus Carr and Timmy Allen have been around the block a few times. We had Timmy on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him about that, what was the most important factor. And I think, they're just guys who wanted to play for each other. They played pretty unselfishly, and they're a really good defensive team. And those two guys I mentioned, are guys who can really put up points. I don't. That's another team that I think things have to fall kind of right for them, but they've got a couple of explosive players and they guard, and that league is that conference is the best conference top to bottom, and it's not really close because there's not a team in that conference that you can go in with your C game and win. You just can't, and pretty much every other one you can. Now, I don't know that I think that they have any more national championship contenders. What they have is a bunch of teams that are probably going to screw up your bracket, depending on where they're seated. But I don't know if they've got more teams that can win, 5 or 6 games, 6 games to win the national championship, 5 games to get there. I don't know that they have any more teams than the other leagues do, but I do know they have more that can beat your team that can do it, at least on the right day. And, there'll be a bunch of Big 12 teams in there, and I think a bunch of them will advance, too.
And there'll be a bunch of Big 10 teams. It was an exciting weekend watching Big 10 basketball, some incredible games. But Purdue, after the 22-1 start, they've lost 4 of 6. Is there anyone in that Big 10 conference that you think can win 6 games in this tournament and win a national championship?
After what I saw on Saturday night from Indiana, I think it's not crazy because we spent a lot of time talking about Trace Jackson Davis, and he is a terrific player. But Jalen Hood-Schifino is another guy who's going to be in the NBA. I think he put 35 on Purdue Saturday night. So they've got, they're not, we were talking about the depth of Alabama earlier. They're not as deep, but they're certainly talented, and they've got a couple of stars. But I think the two that can do it, unless I'm just completely forgetting somebody in the Big Ten off the top of my head, I think it would be the 2 teams that played Saturday, Indiana and Purdue. Now, if Purdue's going to do it, they've got to give Zach Edey a little more help than he's been getting. They've had a little struggle from the perimeter, particularly from Fletcher Loyer, who's one of their freshman guards, who had really been struggling to shoot the 3. Seth Greenberg and I called a game there a couple weeks ago when they played Iowa. And Fletcher hit a couple that night, and he's a really good shooter. I think he won the high school 3-point contest, his last year in high school down at the Final Four. So, we're talking about a guy that can fill it up. And he's hit a rough patch in his freshman year of shooting. They need him to be able to score, and they've got a little depth to them too. So I do think Purdue can do it, but they've hit a little bit of a wall here, and it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of pull it back together for the NCAA tournament.
Rece is the guy who had the extended interview with Alabama AD Greg Byrne on the Brandon Miller situation, and the game day crew covered it in the early segments of the show on Saturday. If you want to see what Rece, Jay Billis, and the guys think about that, you can get that where you get all of your ESPN podcasts and videos there. Away from that story in the SEC, it's been a sort of an up and down year for both Bruce at Auburn and Calipari at Kentucky. And right now it seems to be Bruce's team is down and maybe needing another win to get in, and Cal's team is red hot. Did you think this Kentucky team had in them what you've seen the last 2 weeks? And what do you think of Bruce's bunch before we get to the SEC tournament in Nashville?
I think I'll start with the second part first. I think Auburn is really good. They just have trouble scoring sometimes. They play hard. I thought they played hard Saturday. They just couldn't score, and that's the thing that I think will keep them from making a deep run in the tournament. I do think they'll get in. And on nights, when they're making shots, they're going to be really hard to beat because they really defend and play hard. And so that's why I don't really favor them to make a long run, because I assume that the offense is going to clip them sooner or later. As for Kentucky, Kentucky's just sort of, finding its way to fit together. Jacob Toppin's been a lot better. He's sometimes, I think, scuffles with his confidence. They're figuring out after teams have adjusted to Sheboygan, and he's coming out away from the basket and then driving it a little bit more. Cason Wallace has been good, and and not just good, he's been really good. So I'm not terribly surprised that that Kentucky figured it out, because they always do. They've got really good players. This is probably the rare instance where they just pure talent and pros. They probably have the third or fourth best roster in the SEC, probably third behind Alabama and Arkansas. So those would be the two teams with the most players that have the skill set that you typically associate with Cal's teams at Kentucky. But that doesn't mean they're not good. And I think Kentucky's coming, and I think Duke's coming. And if Duke can keep Dariq Whitehead healthy and he becomes that extra shot maker, I mean, they've got 7'1" dude protecting the rim. They've got a 6'10" kind of scoring machine in Filipowski, one veteran guard, a young guard who's kind of figuring out, and Tyrese Proctor. I think Duke and Kentucky, for all of our lamenting about the Blue Bloods over the course of the season, at least two of them are getting right, right at the perfect time at the end of the season.
Your colleague Buster Olney joins us weekly during baseball season. We have a running joke with Buster about, Red Sox Yankees on ESPN again tonight. Glad we're seeing that rivalry. In that vein, Duke, North Carolina, Saturday, ESPN game day. It's a fun atmosphere, though. We just joke, Rece. We joke,
It's a franchise. Here's the thing about that, and I understand when people that aren't fans of either say that, but there are a couple of things about it. So far this season, it's been the highest-rated college basketball game of the regular season, despite the fact that neither are contending for the title, and I'll bet you it will be again Saturday night. And then beyond that, it's probably the only rivalry in college basketball, and maybe you guys are the exceptions to this, but most everybody, if they are a UCLA fan or a Ohio State fan, when they watch that game, they don't just watch the game, they root. And they're inclined, for whatever reason, on the personal preference scale, for whatever reason, they're either a Duke fan or a Carolina fan in a secondary way. And I'm not sure that there really are very many rivalries in sports. Certainly there isn't one in college basketball that people who aren't affiliated and don't look at either as their primary team sort of have a secondary rooting interest. And I think because of that, it's one of those things. And as Billis has patented and others have tried to steal, it always delivers. So, it almost always does.
It certainly did last year. It was fun. All right, Rece,
sure.
Thank you for the time. We'll see you next Monday. We look forward to this each week. Thank you.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
All right, buddy. Rece Davis with us, ESPN. Rece is going to join us the rest of the regular season throughout the NCAA tournament, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Don't forget code next round when you go sign up at MyBookie.ag. A sign-on bonus up to $2,000. Yours the first time you bet it right there when you use MyBookie.ag. Code next round, MyBookie.ag, code next round.